that Mecca was always sacred, that Abraham and Ishmael built the Kaaba, that long before Muhammad it was already a center of worship and pilgrimage. Muslim tradition claims people traveled from all over Arabia to Mecca, that it was a major trade hub, that it held spiritual and economic influence even before the 7th century. But when you check the facts, it falls apart.
Welcome to Events and History, where we explore the origins, teachings, and historical development of Islam with a fact-based, analytical approach. I saw this video that casts doubt on the existence of Mecca in the 7th century when Muhammad was supposed to have formed his religion there. It's such an eye-opener, so I decided to share. Watch till the end and tell us what you think in the comments section. I will try to explain certain parts of the video as we go along. Here's the video.
Archaeologists have uncovered the tombs of pharaohs, the walls of Jericho, and the temples of Babylon. History leaves footprints. You can follow them. But when it comes to Mecca, the trail goes cold. Not a single confirmed structure from the early Islamic period has ever been uncovered. No mosques from Muhammad's lifetime. No traces of pilgrimage from the 7th century. And here's what makes it worse. Independent archaeologists aren't allowed in. Only Muslim-approved teams. No outside verification. No peer-reviewed digs. Why would the holiest site on earth be off-limits to science? Maybe because what we'd find is nothing. Islam teaches that Mecca was always sacred, that Abraham and Ishmael built the Kaaba, that long before Muhammad it was already a center of worship and pilgrimage. Muslim tradition claims people traveled from all over Arabia to Mecca, that it was a major trade hub, that it held spiritual and economic influence even before the 7th century. But when you check the facts, it falls apart. Ancient Greek geographers like Ptolemy never mention Mecca. His famous world map from the 2nd century lists dozens of cities across Arabia, but Mecca isn't one of them. The Roman Empire had contact with Arabia through trade routes, especially for frankincense and spices. Cities like Petra, Dedan, and Gera are documented. Mecca is completely missing. Even the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a Greek merchant's guide from the 1st century, describes Red Sea trade in detail: ports, towns, caravan routes. Again, Mecca is absent. Jewish and Christian texts from late antiquity reference many Arabian peoples and cities, but never Mecca. Not once. No archaeology. No outside texts. No maps. No inscriptions. If Mecca was truly a religious or commercial center before Islam, Why did the entire ancient world forget to mention it? The only place Mecca seems to exist is in Islamic sources written after the fact. When you visit Jerusalem, you can walk through tunnels under the Temple Mount, see stones from the Second Temple, inscriptions with the name of Yahweh. In Petra, you can see entire cities carved into rock. In Egypt, the tombs of pharaohs still echo their stories. But Mecca? Nothing. Not a single archaeological layer confirming Mecca's early Islamic past. And here's the bigger issue. No one's allowed to look. Saudi Arabia strictly controls all excavations in Mecca and Medina. Independent archaeologists, especially non-Muslims, are banned. No open digs, no peer-reviewed findings, no access to sites of alleged historical significance. Why? What do you find when you dig in Jerusalem? History. What do you find when you dig in Mecca? You're not even allowed to try. And even if there was ancient history in Mecca, it's too late to find it now. Over the past decades, Saudi Arabia has destroyed over 90% of historic Mecca. Entire neighborhoods dating back centuries were bulldozed. Even buildings from the early Islamic era, gone. The house of Khadija, Muhammad's first wife, demolished. The birthplace of Muhammad, replaced with a library. Graveyards of early Muslims, leveled. And all of this to make space for shopping malls, luxury hotels, and construction projects worth billions. The Abraj al-Bait towers, towering over the Kaaba, now sit on top of ancient ruins, ruins that will never be studied. UNESCO and international scholars have raised concerns, but no one can stop it. Ask yourself, why would a nation that claims to protect the holiest site in Islam erase its own history? Maybe because real archaeology doesn't match the official narrative. Maybe because silence is safer than discovery. We have records of pilgrimages to Jerusalem. We have accounts of worship in Babylon, Nineveh, and Thebes. Cities with sacred status left behind inscriptions, drawings, poetry, trade routes, travel journals. Pilgrims wrote, historians documented, empires recorded. But in the 7th century, Mecca is silent. No Roman, Persian, or Byzantine source mentions a grand pilgrimage site called Mecca before Islam. And it gets stranger. Some of the old
Neither ancient geographers nor traders and merchants documented any place called Mecca before the 8th century AD. Even the Roman Empire, with all their conquests and activities in the Arabian region, did not have any record of Mecca before the 8th century. It gets worse. Other old cities like Jerusalem and Alexandria have archaeological findings Saudi government wouldn't allow independent archaeologists to investigate. Even the builders who dig to build the skyscrapers in Mecca for religious tourism have never found anything that allude to ancient origin of Mecca.
Mosques in the Islamic world in Egypt, Syria, Jordan and Iraq don't face Mecca. They point to Petra, hundreds of kilometers north. Dan Gibson and other researchers measured their Qibla, which means the prayer direction, using satellite and structural analysis. The precision of these early mosques, many built within the 1st century of Islam, is striking, and they do not align with Mecca. If Mecca was the original holy city, why did Muslims in the earliest years point somewhere else? Petra had a sacred black stone, mountains, water sources, and religious traditions. Mecca had nothing, not then. And scholars are noticing. Academics like Patricia Crone and Michael Cook raised the alarm years ago. Islamic history, as presented in traditional sources, doesn't match the timeline. The Islamic Empire rose fast, but the details of Muhammad's life, the importance of Mecca, and the rituals of pilgrimage were recorded decades, sometimes centuries later, by writers far from the scene. What does that mean? It suggests Mecca's central role was retroactively written into the story. A later invention canonized for political and religious control. And control pays. Today, the Hajj is one of the largest religious gatherings on earth. Every year, over 2 million Muslims flood into Mecca from every corner of the globe. Many spend their life savings just to be there once. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, a spiritual obligation that's not optional. But behind the white robes and chants lies something else. A financial empire. Saudi Arabia earns an estimated 12 to 20 billion US dollars every single year from Hajj and Umrah pilgrimages. It's the kingdom's second biggest source of income after oil. The money flows in from visa fees, accommodation, transportation, food, and everything else pilgrims spend on. These visitors aren't just welcomed, they're marketed to, sold to, and built around. Currently, this revenue makes up about 7% of the non-oil GDP, far from the exaggerated numbers sometimes tossed around. That said, Saudi Arabia is thinking big. With massive investments into infrastructure, luxury hotels, and religious tourism campaigns, the government is aiming to grow the Hajj and Umrah economy into a $150 to $350 billion market over the next decade. But that's a future projection. Today, the real earnings are still in the low tens of billions.
While studies point to Petra in Jordan rather than Mecca, As the ancient Arabian city where Islam possibly started, Mecca is booming with religious tourism. And the Saudi government is making big investments in luxury hotels to milk their advantage.
There are luxury hotels directly above the Kaaba, some charging thousands of dollars per night. Shopping malls line the route to prayer. Global fast food chains, luxury watches, designer perfumes, all sold just meters from Islam's most sacred site. And if you thought this was simply for convenience, think again. The Saudi state controls the narrative. Access to Mecca is restricted. Why? Because Mecca must remain what it has become, a carefully preserved myth, built not on excavated history, but on financial interest and religious control. The deeper you dig, the more fragile it all looks. Saudi officials have demolished over 95% of Mecca's historical buildings in the last 2 decades. There's no sign of preservation, no reverence for real history. Because the goal is not archaeology, the goal is branding. Mecca has become a religious product, packaged and sold on a global scale. It's the ultimate destination, not because of what lies beneath it, but because of what's been said about it. Repeated, institutionalized, monetized. And that leads us to one devastating truth. Mecca's story wasn't written from the ground up. It was built backwards, crafted to fit a religious system, then walled off, sealed tight, and monetized. Because the moment we start digging, it all begins to crumble. It's time to ask what they don't want you to. It's time to follow the evidence, even when it leads away from Mecca. Like, share, subscribe, because the more people see this, the fewer will stay blind.
The history of Islam is shrouded in secrecy. From the Prophet to the city where he was supposedly born and where he established his religion, all is in doubt. But we will continue searching for the truth and follow the evidence to where it leads. Peace to the world.